The series begins with Nami traveling from her village to Tokyo to apply for a job. At the train station, she talks to her childhood friend, Ken, who at that moment is choosing their engagement ring. However, she doesn't know this. He asks her whether she prefers something simple or flashy, and when she asks what he's talking about, he doesn't tell her. Nami narrates that Ken once dreamed of becoming a football player, but became an accountant to please his family. As for her, she was born into a modest family. Her father was an obscure writer, her mother a regular housewife, and they ran a small bookstore. Due to their financial struggles, Nami and her sister gave up on big dreams, believing that the best aspiration for ordinary people like them was to live a stable life. When asked in school to write about her dreams, she simply said she wanted a stable life. Returning to the present, Nami arrives at the company 2 hours early and has to wait outside. Unfortunately, there are no seats available, and when she finally finds one, a young man rushes to stop her from sitting down. Thinking he's harassing her, she pushes him away and sits on the chair, only to discover it's freshly painted. Her clothes get ruined. The young man, whose name is revealed to be June, was actually trying to warn her. While she panics and calls her mom, June learns she has a 3 p.m. interview and decides to help. He takes her to a store to buy new clothes and even picks out an outfit for her. Nami notices that the store looks too fancy and hesitates, but June goes ahead to pay. She insists on paying for herself, pretending to be independent, only to find out the total price is in the 5 figures. Despite the chaos, this event changes everything. Although Nami gets rejected for the job she initially applied for, the HR manager of a fashion magazine notices her outfit and is impressed. He calls her and offers her a position at the magazine in an administrative role, as the magazine is prestigious and famous. On her first day, Nami is completely lost amidst the bustling workplace. Eventually, she meets the HR manager, whom we'll call Wesso because he's super good looking. He sends her to someone named Mari without explaining what she's supposed to do. When Nami finds Mari, she's in the middle of a fashion show rehearsal. After it ends, Mari has her assistants pile dresses, boxes, and other items on Nami to carry, and then leaves her running after her. In the end, Mari gets into a taxi and waves goodbye, leaving Nami to pay for her own cab. Back at the office, Nami grumbles about Mari, calling her arrogant for being tall, beautiful, and selfish. But then, surprise, Mari turns out to be the editor-in-chief of the magazine, making Nami's complaints look bad. Wesso gathers all the employees to announce that he brought Mari from Paris to transform the magazine into a global powerhouse, competing with Vogue. Mari tells everyone that she aims to hit 300,000 sales within 2 months, and warns that anyone who complains about the workload can complain elsewhere because they're too busy here. When Nami tries to ask about her job responsibilities or vacation policy, Wesso cuts her off, saying she'll be doing everything from fetching coffee to hailing taxis, carrying stuff, and answering phones when there's nothing else to do. We then see Mari sitting in her office looking tense. Wesso walks in and notices her unease. He offers to take her out for a meal, but when she hesitates, he brushes it off, saying, "Let's leave it for another time." He encourages her to stay focused on her work. At a photo shoot location, we see June, who has all the girls swooning over his charm. Suddenly, he gets a call from his mom who wants to set him up for marriage. He tells her he's a free-spirited guy who wants to live life on his terms and make his own choices. He hangs up, ignoring her request for beans and rice, and heads back to the photo shoot. By the end of the day, Nami returns home completely drained, wondering how she'll survive the rest of the week. The next day, the team is under pressure to create a logo for Mavi magazine and contact the lead model, but they're stuck and don't know where to start. That's when Mari steps in, revealing she's already arranged everything like the pro she is. Suddenly, Nami walks into the room but trips and falls flat on her face. Everyone looks at her with disdain, especially Mari, who's notoriously hard to please. Later, a colleague named Nezuka asks Nami to fetch a blazer, but she brings him the wrong item, frustrating him. However, he gives her a fashion glossary and tells her to study it thoroughly, as it's unacceptable to work there without knowing the terminology. Soon after, Mari calls Nami and tells her to bring a sketchbook and meet her. Not knowing what a sketchbook is, Nami is handed one by Nezuka, who playfully taps her on the head. When she meets Mari, she's asked to sit beside her in the car as Mari sketches a new dress. Mari then tells her she's free to leave if she wants, and Nami gets excited about leaving early to finally meet Ken. However, when she arrives at the cafe Ken mentioned, she's shocked to find a long queue that'll take 2 hours to get through. Later that night, Ken calls to invite her to his birthday party the next day, saying he's made up his mind and wants to introduce her to his friends. Thinking he's finally going to propose, Nami is overjoyed. Jumping with excitement, she wears her best outfit, buys a cake, and heads to the cafe Ken mentioned. But to her shock, he introduces her to his friends as his childhood friend. The bigger blow comes when he introduces Sally, his fiancée, and the daughter of his office manager. Stunned, Nami holds back her tears, excuses herself by claiming she has work, and runs out while a sad song plays. I thought I was the only one in his heart, but someone else came and stole it in a second. She cries uncontrollably until she gets a message from Mari, asking her to meet at a cafe to call her a taxi. Frustrated and at her limit, Nami confronts Mari, telling her she didn't realize she was just a servant for her. She declares that being an ordinary person with ordinary dreams doesn't mean she deserves to be treated like dirt. Mari coldly replies that Nami isn't even ordinary, she's below ordinary, because ordinary people can handle routine tasks, which Nami couldn't manage for even a week. Furious, Nami announces her resignation. Mari tells Nami she doesn't even have principles or know what she truly wants. Hurt, Nami walks away in tears. She stops at the bench she'd fought for earlier, sitting down in despair. Suddenly, Jun appears and startles her, but then casually eats some of her cake, admitting he can't resist sweet. Seeing how sad she is, he takes her on his motorcycle to the beat, where they spend the entire day together talking. Nami opens up about Ken, her unrequited love, and how she came to Tokyo for him, only to discover she didn't fit in. She feels out of place in a city where everyone has dreams. Jun tells her that having a dream isn't always necessary, as sometimes dreams can suffocate us. His perspective comforts her. Later, her colleague Ho calls, explaining that the sketch Nami delivered had a floral design meant for the model's photo shoot. However, Ho had torn it up, thinking it was a gift from an ex-boyfriend. This mishap means Ho could get fired. Nami suggests they scour the city for flowers to replicate the design. The entire team joins the search, but they manage to gather only a small number of mismatched flowers. When Mari arrives, she decides to take full responsibility for the mistake. She gets scolded but proposes an alternative idea, taking the model to a park she had seen before and shooting the photos there. The idea impresses everyone. The next day, they visit the park, but the owner initially refuses to let them use it. Mari humbles herself, even lying on the ground and pleading with words full of praise for the owner. Moved, the owner agrees. The team is shocked by Mari's actions, as they've never seen her act this way. The model even warmly greets Mari, revealing that they are close friends. Additionally, the man Mari had to convince turns out to be a renowned fabric dyer, who avoids the media entirely, yet she managed to persuade him too. Nami begins to feel guilty for misjudging Mari, and realizes she can learn a lot from her because of how remarkable she truly is. Back at the company, they celebrate the release of the magazine's new cover. Nami is thrilled and decides not to resign after all. She tells Mari that hearing how she humbled herself in front of the park owner inspired her to stay. Mari laughs and replies, "What are you talking about? I'd kneel in front of you if you'd give me 50 million from the profit I'll make on this cover." Nami recalls Weso's words about Mari being materialistic and only smiling when money is involved. Later, Nami thanks Jun for helping her through everything. He tells her he doesn't want thanks, but instead wants her to pretend to be his girlfriend for a day, so his family will stop setting him up with potential brides. She agrees, and they go to meet his family, only to discover that Mari is his sister. Shocked, Nami asks why Mari is so cold. She pulls Jun aside and whispers that Mari is her arrogant boss. They prepare what to say in front of Mari, but get flustered and end up contradicting each other. Although Mari isn't fooled, she lets it slide. On their way back, Nami starts to wonder why Jun chose her to play the role of his girlfriend when he could have picked anyone else. She convinces herself it's because she's special. They agree on a plan to convince Mari of their relationship. Nami will avoid being seen by Mari directly, but will subtly display Jun's photo on her phone. And soon the entire company believes they are dating. During the meeting, everyone presents their ideas until Nasuka suggests asking Ada, the famous manga artist, to draw characters wearing their designs. This way, they could achieve global recognition. Mari loves the idea and uses it to pressure Nami. She tells her that if she convinces Ada, Mari will ensure her father and brother approve of her relationship with Jun. However, if she fails, which Mari expects, Nami is left feeling unsure of what to do. When Nami asks Nasuka for advice, he initially refuses to help, but eventually feels sorry for her. He tells her that Ada is famous for his 29-volume manga series, Summer Sorrows, and that he has a peculiar hobby, playing a strange game called Ball and Coup. Nami rushes to Jun, asking him to find a solution since failing to convince Ada means losing her job. Jun spends the entire night training her in the game until she falls asleep from exhaustion. The next morning, Nami wakes up in a panic, realizing she's late for work. She rushes out, manages to deliver Mari's coffee just in time, and then heads with Mr. Wesso to meet Ada. On the way, she asks Wesso why she was hired to do routine tasks for the magazine. He reveals that initially, they wanted to hire her for her good fashion sense. However, when he saw her wearing old shoes, he concluded that she was only suited for mundane tasks. Nami feels disheartened, as she had returned her matching shoes that day because she couldn't afford them. Sensing her nervousness, Wesso reassures her that he'll handle the deal with Ada, and that her role is just to support him. When they meet Ada, Wesso persuades him to collaborate. However, Wesso exaggerates, claiming Nami is a champion at ball and coups. Ada, intrigued, challenges Nami to a game. Unfortunately, Nami has no experience with the game and scores no points, causing the deal to fall through. Back at the office, Mari tells them she knew they would fail, but didn't want to take responsibility. Instead, she let Nami take the fall, making her accountable for the company's loss. As a result, Nami is fired. Heartbroken, she goes to Jun and vents about everything Mari has done to her, blaming it on his relationship with her. She then asks Jun why he chose her to act as his girlfriend. Jun bluntly tells her that he picked her because there was no chance of anything real happening between. If he had feelings for a girl, he would never fake a relationship with her. This breaks Nami's heart further, and she ends their charade, locking herself away to practice the game. The next day, she approaches Ada and demonstrates her newly acquired skills. Impressed by her determination, he commends her and forgives their earlier deception. Later, Nami tells Jun they need to officially end their fake relationship, as it's no longer helpful. Jun agrees, bids her farewell, and leaves her with a bracelet he had previously given her as a keepsake. When Nami returns to the company, she informs Mari about the breakup. Mari is overjoyed and shares some news. Ada has agreed to create the drawings after all. As a reward, Mari invites Nami to join them at a party at the embassy. At the event, Mari encounters her longtime rival Raya, who works for Zeal, a far more popular magazine than Mavi. Raya mocks Mari, saying, "Oh, how the mighty have fallen from Paris to Mavi, how pitiful." Mari pretends not to recognize her, and then heads to the stage to deliver a speech. Suddenly, Mari announces that Nami is a champion at the ball and coups game, and makes her perform in front of everyone. Nami, caught off guard, is terrified but has no choice but to play. She manages to score 2 points before completely messing up. Mari then tells her to leave. The next day, when Nami goes to the office, she's surprised to find out they've signed a deal with Witty, a highly renowned jewelry brand. She wonders how this could happen after she embarrassed herself in front of the executive the day before. Mr. Wesso explains that Mari spun the situation to their advantage. She claimed that just as a rookie like Nami managed to impress a famous manga artist through sheer determination in ball and coups, their young company could also sign deals. As expected, the executive, who happens to be a huge fan of Ada, was convinced and signed with them. When Nami learns this, she rushes to Mari and tells her that while Mari exploited her, she also taught her she wasn't an ordinary person. Nami declares that from now on, she doesn't want to be average anymore. Mari is impressed by her words, smiles briefly, but leaves without much reaction. The following day, as Nami carries a basket of lemons to the photo shoot location, she bumps into Jun. He helps her carry them and apologizes for what he said earlier. He admits that he didn't choose her just because they couldn't be together romantically. He chose her because she's fun, trustworthy, and genuinely helpful. Grateful, he thanks her. Nami brushes it off casually and excuses herself to leave. Before she can go, Jun grabs her hand and asks. Shocked and flustered, Nami doesn't know how to respond. Jun clarifies, saying he's asking if she dislikes him because if she doesn't, he'd like to invite her to his art exhibition. He hands her an invitation and Nami says she'll think about it before heading off to help Nasuka with the shoot. As she works, she contemplates attending the exhibition, worried it might bring her closer to Jun and risk her falling for him. A few days later, Nami arrives at the office to find chaos. Everyone is rushing around, preparing for the final review of the magazine, which is set to launch in a week. Nasuka mentions an interview with a judo athlete named Seo, set to feature in the first issue. He describes Seo as remarkable, and the interview as exceptional. During a meeting with Mari, the team is stunned when she announces that Seo's interview will not be included in the first issue. Moreover, she orders all the editors to revise their section. When Nasuka asks why Seo's piece was cut, Mari explains that Seo's wrist injury hasn't healed yet, and in the interview, she claimed she'd win a championship in a month, something unlikely to happen, including it would harm the magazine's credibility. Instead, Mari assigns them to interview an economist named Koki Kaka. The team reacts poorly, especially the editor, Kyra, who protests. When Mari overhears their complaints, they confront her, saying, "It's either you leave or we do." Mari responds coolly, everyone except Mr. Wesso, Nasuka, and Nami. Nasuka later goes to apologize to Seo for cutting her feet. However, when he sees her training hard, he quietly leaves behind an early draft of the magazine with her story as it was originally written. The next day, Nami goes running with Mari and Koki Kaka. During their conversation, Koki reveals that Mari's father's company group is expanding and he needs her help. However, Mari holds a grudge against him because he chose her reckless and irresponsible brother, June, to be the heir instead of her, despite her being hardworking and talented all her life. Later, Mari's rival Raya shows up and tries to spend time with Koki, but Mari pulls Koki away, leaving Nami to seize the opportunity to ask Raya about Koki and why Mari is so eager to interview him. Raya teases her, saying she's revealing ideas to a competitor. When Nami shows no fear, Raya assures her, "Don't worry, dear, I won't steal your idea." That evening, June sees Nasuka and gives him an extra invitation to the exhibition to ensure Nami gets it. The next day, Nami suggests to Mari that if she humbles herself and apologizes to the team, Mari sarcastically replies, "If silence was worth 50 million, I'd consider it." Things get even more chaotic as Nami tries to reconnect with her colleague. Meanwhile, Raya invites Nami to a casual night out where she unexpectedly runs into June. He invites everyone to his exhibition, making Nami feel she isn't special. As Nami leaves, she accidentally bumps into two aggressive men who almost start a fight with her. June steps in, stopping them, and drags Nami away to safety. He asks for her phone number so he can delete it from his contacts, but she tells him it's unnecessary because there's nothing between them. He then asks about the exhibition, to which she replies, "Didn't I already tell you I'm not coming?" The next day, a new senior employee joins the magazine. Let's call him Grandpa Ali. Because of him, Nami tries to convince her colleagues to return, but they refuse. Meanwhile, Mari attends June's exhibition, but still rejects his attempts to reconcile with their father. She also reveals that she knows his relationship with Nami is fake, and that they're not really dating. Back at the office, Nami asks Mari for the real reason she canceled Seo's interview. When a story feels too good to be true, there's usually something wrong. If you want more details, investigate for yourself. Nami goes to Nasuka's desk, reads through all the drafts and information he gathered about Seo, and discovers something important. Insists they visit Seo together. When they meet Seo, she apologizes for lying about being ready to She admits her arm hasn't healed and won't be ready by then. Seo confesses that she wanted to compete. She had already won the championship 6 times in a row and dreamed of making it 7 to match her legendary father. However, Mari discovered the truth and confronted her. Mari warned that if the magazine published Seo's story, it would elevate society's expectations of her and her father's legacy. This pressure would push Seo to overexert herself in training, risking her entire career. Instead, Mari advised her to wait until she fully recovers and competes in future championships. Seo was convinced by Mari's reasoning and shares with Nasuka and Nami that Mari is an extraordinary woman. After they leave, Nasuka thanks Nami and gives her the invitation June had given him. Surprisingly, Nasuka heads back to the magazine to do the interview with Koki, bringing Raya along. Not only that, but all the staff return and get back to work. However, the proofreading task remains unfinished. That's when Grandpa Ali reminds them, "Didn't I tell you? I'm a proofreader." With that, the preliminary issue is completed, and Nasuka shows it to Mari, who approves it. Celebrations follow, especially when Mari compliments them on a job well done. Nami hesitates about attending June's exhibition, but decides to go in the end. Unfortunately, June isn't there when she arrives. She wanders around, admiring the photos, and notices one of the bench she sat on, still freshly painted at the time. Meanwhile, we see Mari out on a date with Mr. Su, shy like a typical girl, and it's clear they're like lovebirds, though keeping it private. Back at the exhibition, Jun arrives, but finds Nami has already left. He runs to catch up with her and manages to stop her. Grateful she came, he thanks her, and she thanks him in return for coming all that way to express his gratitude. She compliments his photography, calling it unique and fascinating. They both laugh about the photo of the painted bench. A few days later, the first issue of the magazine is released and becomes a huge hit. Nami is overjoyed, especially when she sees her name listed as the assistant to the editor-in-chief. She thinks of June and wonders if he likes her. Her thoughts are interrupted by a call from her family, who are celebrating her success with sushi and good vibes after seeing her name in the magazine. This makes her so happy that she decides to buy some new clothes, reasoning that she can't work at a fashion magazine without having stylish outfits. Unfortunately, her new look turns out to be a bit too eccentric. Her colleagues tease her about it and suggest she avoid Mari for a while. Later, they invite her to an event hosted by a major handbag brand. At the event, Nami shows up in a stunning dress which isn't her usual style but looks amazing on her. By chance, she runs into Ken, who asks her, "What do you think about us dating?" Nami is caught off guard, especially since Ken is already engaged. He grabs her hand and tries to take her outside, but luckily Jun is there. He intervenes, holding Nami back and telling Ken, "She's my girlfriend. You can't treat her like a backup option because she's number one in my life." Jun then takes Nami aside, away from the crowd. When she asks why he did that, he admits he was upset seeing Ken treat her poorly. "And what about the CPR you gave me on my head?" Jun laughs, saying he didn't mean anything by it. Frustrated, she snaps, "Listen, pal, I don't like these stunts. Next time, stay 2 meters away from me. Got it?" She storms off, leaving him behind. At the same event, a significant figure arrives. Jinko, the woman who popularized Japanese fashion globally. Mari, who had trained under Jinko as a child, watches her enter, signaling a major turn of events. When Mari arrives, she greets Jinko warmly, revealing a cordial relationship between them. The next day, Nami sends Jinko some sweets as a token of goodwill. Jinko then asks Nami to accompany her as her guide to an upcoming event. Nami agrees, and they take a taxi together. During the ride, Nami notices how respectfully Jinko treats her assistants, acknowledging them as integral to her success. Nami comments that she hasn't seen Mari extend such kindness. Instead, Mari treats her staff like doormats, even nicknaming her Mudball. She adds that Mari is like the devil, smiling only for money. Jinko laughs and asks if Mari ever made any blunders during her training. Nami replies that she'll let her know if she recalls any. Jinko then requests that Nami arrange a meeting with Mr. Su, which surprises Nami. Jinko reveals that she and Mr. Su were married but divorced 15 years ago. Nami agrees to help, and is later thrilled when Jinko asks for her assistance on a new project. Back at the company, Nami delivers Jinko's message to Mr. Su, who asks her to schedule the meeting for next week since Jinko doesn't use phones, jokingly comparing her to someone who relies on carrier pigeon. Afterward, Nami approaches Mari to request a few days off to help Jinko with her project. Mari sarcastically tells her to go ahead, but suggests she resign so someone else can replace her. Nami clarifies it's just for a few days, but Mari dismisses her and walks away, though not without a sly remark, implying she knows Jinko spoke about her kindness. When Nami arrives at Jinko's place, she's tasked with choosing belts that match the outfits, with the possibility of her selections being featured in the magazine. Nami is thrilled by this opportunity and feels genuinely appreciated. Later, she returns to the office to collect her things, where she's invited on a camping trip by Jun's friend, who had planned the outing. Nami agrees, and they decide to invite Nasuka along as well. On the day of the trip, Nasuka arrives at the meeting point, where only he and Nami are present. To Nami's surprise, Jun shows up instead of Ai, explaining that Ai isn't feeling well. Nami starts to feel conflicted. Later, Jun and Nami are sent to the supermarket to pick up food for the barbecue while Nasuka stays behind. Jun teases Nami, hinting that she seems interested in Nasuka, which leaves her flustered. He also subtly suggests he wants to be with her, leaving her overwhelmed and wanting to scream. When they return and start grilling, Nami notices that Nasuka appears more interested in Mari than her. After dinner, Nami volunteers to wash the dishes and ends up paired with Jun. However, he keeps his distance, prompting her to ask why. Jun reminds her that she had once asked him to stay 2 meters away. She bursts into laughter, realizing he took her joke seriously, and teases him for taking her so literally. Nami keeps wondering why Jun is keeping his distance from her. Later, she asks if they can go stargazing at night, and he gets really excited. However, their plans are cut short when Marika calls Nami, asking her to bring a specific belt that's missing. Nami apologizes to Jun, explaining that she won't be able to watch the stars with him, but they agree to make it up on Tuesday after work. Meanwhile, Nasuka overhears their conversation and seems upset and jealous. When Nami meets Marika, she realizes the belt is incredibly important and must be delivered to Jinko. However, Marika refuses because she knows it coincides with Jinko's meeting with Mr. Su. The next day, when Jinko learns what happened, she harshly scolds Marika and cruelly fires her. Nami tries to mediate, explaining the situation, but Jinko dismisses her input, stating that she doesn't consider her assistant's opinions. Jinko also insults Nami, calling Mari a failure as an editor-in-chief for failing to teach her anything. Mari doesn't let the criticism slide and defends herself, pointing out that at least she sometimes values her team's opinion. At that moment, Mari steps in and demonstrates a clever styling trick by modifying the belt Marika had chosen, transforming it into something stunning. Mari reveals it's a technique she learned from Jinko. Jinko is impressed, reconciles with Marika, and agrees to use the photo shoot as planned. She even thanks Mari for reminding her that she has the ability to turn lemons into lemonade. Later, they all sit down together, and Nami gains a deeper appreciation for Mari, realizing that Jinko was once Mari's role model, just as Mari is hers. Before Jinko leaves, she advises Mari to take care of Mr. Su, acknowledging that Mari has loved him for a long time, even during her training days. Mari fondly recalls the first time she met Mr. Su when she forgot to remove a clothing tag, and he noticed, pointing it out to her. Coincidentally, Nami shows Mari her new outfit for work, also forgetting to remove the tag, making Mari laugh. That evening, Nami calls Ai to ask about Jun. During their conversation, Ai mentions that Jun has never cared about anyone before, except his childhood friend, Yumi, who is currently abroad. Nami's heart breaks yet again and she isolates herself, feeling dejected. Nasuka finds her and asks if she'll go out to stargaze that night. Nami is left torn, unsure if she should keep her promise to Jun or stay away. When the clock strikes 7, Jun still doesn't call or check in on her. She keeps thinking about his words, but she decides to go to him as they had agreed. When she arrives, she doesn't find him on the bench. She starts to walk away, but then she sees him sitting on the ground, curled up in the middle of the rain, waiting for her. It turns out he had forgotten his phone, which is why he hadn't responded to her. She feels like crying because he is so kind. At the same time, his childhood friend Yumi arrives in Japan. At Nami's house, we see Jun lying down and we learn that he confessed his love for her. She feels incredibly happy. When she goes to work, she finds out that the employee evaluations are coming up and they'll be promoting someone. She realizes she might also be in line for a promotion. She tells them that she'll write the article instead of him, as it's part of her old work. Mari agrees to give her the opportunity. Nami also tells Nasuoka to try to schedule a meeting with the world-renowned violinist Ryo. Nami spends time chatting with Jun and eating butterflies, but she's still unsure whether they are in a relationship or not, since he hasn't asked her to be his girlfriend. She decides to ask him when she sees him. When she arrives at work, she meets Jun's childhood friend, Dina, but Nami doesn't realize who she is, and Ryo turns out to be very friendly. She invites Nami to lunch. When she sees the bracelet Jun gave Nami, she mentions that it looks like one she knows. Nami then tells her the story of her life. Afterward, Nami and Nasuoka schedule the interview. However, Mari calls Nami, forcing her to return to her duty. Later, Jun texts Nami saying that he has a lot of crabs and wants to share them with her. Nami decides to apply the strategies she learned from Ryo to make him ask her to be his girlfriend. So she eventually has to be straightforward and says, "I'm telling you, Jun, you're the brother of Mari." Just as she says this, Nami tries to hide, but she gets caught in the end. Mari tells her she was just coming to try the crabs. The next day, Nami gathers her courage and admits to Mari that she loves Jun, her brother, and will do everything she can to make Mari accept her. Mari tells her that she doesn't care about it, and that the most important thing is that the work gets done. If Nami can't handle it, she should quit. Mari challenges Nami to balance a romantic relationship and her work, and Nami accepts the challenge. Later, Jun is holding a picture of Ryo, and he remembers when she told him she would dedicate her life to playing the violin. During the day, Nami walks in on him and says that she didn't give Ryo's dress to her stylist. Jun is confused, thinking that Ryo is a man, and Nami corrects him, saying she gave it to a woman. This creates some tension between them. Nami rushes to fix the situation and learns that Jun went to a woman named Mom Ji, a photographer for a magazine. She heads to the hotel with Nasuoka accompanying her. They see Mom Ji wearing the dress and find that she likes it a lot, but she insists on making some changes. Suddenly, Mari enters and reveals that she knows Mom Ji and has brought her a dress she has liked for a long time. Mom Ji happily agrees to exchange the dress without any issues. Then Nami tries to apologize, but Mari tells her that she's succeeding because she takes her work seriously. Nami stays at work to write the newsletter and asks Nasuoka to help her. He assists and says a few words to lift her spirits. Jun texts her to meet at their usual spot. Nami tries to resist, but in the end she goes to him. He has prepared food for her and moves closer to recharge her energy. When she returns to Nasuoka, he has also brought her food but hesitates. Nami continues working until she finishes and then goes to sleep. Nasuoka watches her with admiration, but he thinks she is only interested in Jun. He covers her with a blanket and leaves. The next day, when Nami shows the internal newsletter, Mari tells her, "You think I'll approve of this trash?" "No, of course not." Nami feels discouraged and calls Jun to tell him. He reassures her that it's not important that Mari didn't like it. What matters is that she did it, and she should focus on the next phase. The problem is Mari actually liked it. Mari agrees to publish it, but she would never admit that she liked it. Soon after, Mr. Su enters to speak with Mari and asks her to go out. He tells her he knew she wouldn't agree to go out with an old man like him. She tells him it's not impossible at all. Later we see the interview with Ryo. After it finishes, Nami asks her what happened with her boyfriend. Nami tells her the whole story and asks if she ever had a boyfriend before. Ryo says that there was someone she loved in the past, but she chose her career instead. At the same time, Jun decides to ask Nami to go out and be together. When he arrives, he is about to say it but sees Ryo and freezes, not knowing what to say. Ryo then mentions that this is her childhood friend, and Nami connects the dots and realizes that Ryo is Jun's true love. Later, we see them at a big party hosted by Mari, full of important people including Ryo, who is performing at the event. Mari tells us that after Ryo's performance, she excused herself and left. She now wants to know what happened between Ryo and Jun. While leaving, they run into Mari's father, who tries to introduce her to a young businessman named Shishtawi, hoping for future collaboration. But Mari ignores him and only greets him with, "Dear father." When Nami returns home, she finds Jun waiting for her since she hasn't been answering his calls. He refuses to leave. She reluctantly lets him in, and he spends the night, but Nami feels happy deep inside. The next day, the second issue of the magazine is being prepared. Ryo asks Mari to borrow Nami to help her. Mari agrees, but she seems distracted, holding a ticket to the aquarium. Nami realizes that Mari is going on a date with Mr. Su. Nami is very happy for her. Later, Mari meets Shishtawi, who was introduced to her by her father. He offers to take the entire advertising space in the magazine for a year. However, it turns out he's there on her father's recommendation. A few days later, Mari goes on a romantic date with Mr. Su, but she still talks about work. Meanwhile, Nami goes home and finds that Jun has sent her belongings to live with her, surprising her that he decided to move in without even telling her. Shortly after, Ryo visits her. Nami tries to hide the situation, but Ryo catches on and laughs, saying she could tell Jun was important to her by her reaction. Ryo explains that they had dated 10 years ago and tried to maintain the relationship after Ryo left, but they couldn't. This makes Nami even more anxious because it seems Jun might have loved Ryo more. The next day at work, Jun comes as a photographer, but he surprises Nami by confessing that they're officially dating and are like canary birds. Everyone is shocked, especially Nazuoka, who immediately leaves. Nami notices his reaction. When they talk, she shares her concerns with Jun. He reassures her, telling her he wants them to stay together forever. That evening, Mari and Jun meet with their father, who scolds Mari for leaving Paris to work at a small magazine. Later, Mari sits alone reflecting on all the times her spirits were crushed and eventually collapses. Fortunately, Mr. Su is there to catch her. When she wakes up in the hospital, Mr. Su tells her she needs to rest. He also mentions that Shishtawi's offer has been passed along, which could help secure the magazine's future. A little while later, Mari decides to leave the hospital. Jun accompanies her, but as they leave, they see Ryo coming out of the neurology department. Ryo reassures Jun that it's just from too much practice and nothing serious. She then suggests they go for lunch, and he agrees. We see Nami with Nazuoka after a press interview. He takes a few pictures of her and tries to help her understand what she wants. He also suggests that if she wants to check on Mari, she should visit her directly and not wait for Mari to call. When Nami visits Mari, she finds her in a meeting with Shishtawi, who continues to set terms for Mari. He even wants to turn the magazine into an advertising space only for himself. When Mari hears this, she becomes furious, saying that it would strip the magazine of its value. He insists they speak alone, and when Mari returns to Nami, she reveals that because of Nami's encouragement, she remembered the magazine's value and turned down the offer. Nami can't believe it. Meanwhile, we see Mr. Su sitting with Ray, the chameleon, drinking together. She asks him if the Mavi magazine will stop soon, and then sits beside him, holding his hand. It seems like he may be a traitor, and not the only one. We then see Mr. Su with Jun on their way home, but suddenly they stop. Ryo breaks down in tears because her hand won't heal, and she won't be able to play the violin like she used to. She'll just be a regular musician now. She gets closer to Jun, and he embraces her. At that moment, Nami is walking by and sees them, and her heart breaks. She returns to the magazine, where she finds him there, and she starts crying as she explains what happened. Nazuoka hears everything and takes his bike to confront Jun, threatening him that if he doesn't take care of Nami, he will intervene and take her for himself. Afterward, Nazuoka returns to the magazine and confesses his love to Nami. He tells her that if he were in Jun's position, he wouldn't let her cry, and he asks her to date him, giving her the freedom to respond whenever she's ready. He assures her that he's not in a rush. A few days later, Nami's family arrives in Tokyo. She's on her way to work, and when she arrives, Mari is with Mr. Su, who tells her that they have 3 issues left. If the magazine doesn't achieve the required profits, it will be shut down. There's also a man named Ta, Mari's deputy, who hears this. Later, Nami suggests to Mari that they place ads from her father's company, but Mari dismisses the idea, saying they can't have ads from a tissue company in the magazine. However, Mari soon comes up with a new idea. Meanwhile, Rei is seen sitting with Shishtawi, where they discuss Mari. At the same time, Nami's family has arrived, and her father notices the presence of toothbrushes, realizing that she's in a relationship. He starts asking her about it. She tries to dodge the question. The whole family enjoys the moment, and when Nami arrives home, she doesn't get a chance to sit with them before the doorbell rings. Nami is in a huge dilemma, not knowing what to do, but she eventually goes downstairs to talk to him. She tells him that she saw him with Rio. June explains that there's nothing between them, that he only got close to her because Rio was feeling sad, being very kind. Nami, frustrated, replies that she would also go comfort anyone who's sad. She tells him that she no longer understands him, then walks away. Her mother follows June out to speak with him. The next day at the office, Nami goes with Mari to a yoga class, and they continue brainstorming with Mari's friends. Finally, Mari smiles, and Nami understands that she has come up with an idea. We then see Rio with June during a photo shoot, asking him to stay with her during her medical test results. But when he agrees, she feels guilty. She tells him she's taking advantage of his kindness and admits that she still loves him. At the same time, she doesn't want to hurt Nami. His kindness makes her feel even more, but she's torn. Meanwhile, Nami's family believes she's in a relationship. They visit his apartment and find him walking with a completely different woman. They later tell Nami that they found out she has a boyfriend, and when they went to see him, he was with a woman with short hair. Nami assumes they're talking about June, and she becomes convinced that he's cheating on her. The next day, everyone at the magazine goes camping, except poor Nami, who stays behind to finish some tasks for Mari. Meanwhile, Nami's father meets June and pieces everything together, realizing that June is Nami's boyfriend. He invites him over to their house, and everyone warmly welcomes him, having a great time together. During the camping trip, one of the employees reveals that the entire publishing house is about to shut down, and that they've been gathered for this reason. Nami is later seen sitting with the manager of a company, waiting for Mari, who is caught up with something. She asks Nami to occupy him with anything until she arrives. June, on the other hand, takes Nami's family out on a tour since she's busy. Eventually, Mari arrives, but by then, Nami has already been dismissed. However, they manage to pitch an offer to the company manager, where a large company will collaborate with them and agree to run the advertisement. This idea was actually Nami's, and she is shocked that her ideas are working. Afterward, she returns to her colleagues and tries to get closer to him and Nazuoka, but he tells her that he already heard Nazuoka's confession, so there's no point in what she's trying to do. At the end of the day, Nami's bracelet, a gift from June, falls off, and she starts searching for it. Nazuoka helps her look for it, and they continue searching until late at night, missing the last truck. During this time, June is with Nami's family, and they compliment his kindness. He asks them if being too kind can hurt someone, making them realize that he's fighting with Nami because of this. They tell him that if his kindness, they wouldn't have enjoyed their time in Tokyo. Regarding Nami, they are fine with their relationship, having accepted it. Meanwhile, Nami and Nazuoka can only find one room in the hotel. However, Nazuoka shows respect and leaves the room to her, unwilling to stay with her out of consideration for June. In Tokyo, by chance, June runs into Rei, who tells him what happened. He grabs his things and heads to the village. At the company, Mari discovers that her foot was injured from wearing high heels too much, so Mr. Su applies some honey to her wound, meaning medical tape. Nami's mother calls her and explains the misunderstanding, clarifying that they were talking about Ken, not June. Nami realizes that June never cheated on her. She calls him, and Nazuoka continues searching for the photos all night. The next day, June arrives to see Nami and tells her that she is the only one in his heart and mind. She responds, saying that she wants him for herself too. They move closer to each other, and Nazuoka sees them. He leaves the photos aside and walks away, showing great respect. One day at the company, we find out that Shishtawi has collaborated with Rei. This means that the only company that can potentially save the magazine now is a cosmetics company. June finally returns to his family and decides to take over his father's group of companies. As for Nami, she is finally given the opportunity to write an article, which causes her to stay late at work. When she returns home, she finds June sleeping, but he wakes up and has brought food with him from his hometown, Kanzwa, a very expensive area where only the prominent families live. He decides to take Nami on a date after the release of the third issue. The next day at the company, a disaster occurs. Someone has taken photos of the poor treatment Mari has been giving to Nami and written about it in the newspaper. This will cause the Asnomi company, which was supposed to collaborate with them, to cancel their contract with the magazine to protect their reputation. Mari and Sue go to meet with the company's manager, who tells them that the situation is difficult and that it's hard to make a decision right now. Meanwhile, at the magazine, Ray suggests that the leak must have come from someone within the company. However, they all agree to put in their best effort at work and not give too much attention to the issue. At the same time, Jun is sitting with Ai and tells him that he has decided to move into his family's house so he can work with them. He will leave photography behind but doesn't know how to tell Nami. Ai advises him to tell her in a way that gives her the chance to decide what she wants. Outside the company, Nami stands with Nazuoka and apologizes to him, saying that she won't be able to love him. He laughs and asks if she really believed him, as he was just joking. In fact, he's crying because of the situation. Then he hints that she loves him, and Nami responds that if your boyfriend has dumped you, you should look for someone who can truly love you. On her way, Nami sees Jun, who has prepared a surprise for her. He wants her to ride behind him on his bicycle, as it was one of the things on her wish list, which he found by chance. She tells him to stop playing around. The next day, Nami goes with an employee from the company to meet with the Asnomi manager. But when she calls Mari, they end up arguing in front of him. Of course, it's a staged argument, so the manager understands the nature of their relationship and how they make a great duo. He decides to trust them. At the magazine, they're in a tight spot and need a good photographer. So Nami calls Jun for help. Everyone is shocked to learn that Mari is actually his sister, as they had all been bad-mouthing her in front of him before. After finishing, Jun introduces Nami and Mari as his girlfriend, but this time it's for real. As usual, Nami leaves them and walks away. Later, Jun calls Rio to check on her. She tells him that the illness turned out to be just tendinitis, and that she'll get better. But we learn that she's lying because she doesn't want to worry him. After the issue is published, sales skyrocket. Nami goes to Mari to ask for a job as her assistant, no matter what it takes. Mari makes her understand that she needs to learn to take charge, even in places where she's not needed. Later, Nami goes out with Jun, who continues to fulfill the embarrassing things on the list he found. At the same time, Mari is sitting with Ray, who works at the parent company. She informs her that they've decided to prevent the shutdown of the magazine. Mari tells the staff at the magazine, and they celebrate. However, the bad news is that the company has made it a condition that Mari can no longer be the editor-in-chief. Mari tells Ray that this doesn't matter to her, but she wanted to leave the magazine on her own terms, and it was always meant to be passed on to someone else, like Ray, for example. She feels that her time with the magazine is over. At the end of the day, Jun proposes to Nami. She's shocked and overjoyed, of course, and agrees to marry him. The next day, we see Jun moving his things into his family's house, but he still hasn't told Nami. Meanwhile, at the company, and Ray enters to inform them that she's become the new editor-in-chief. However, everyone wants Mari back, and wonders where she is, though they don't know her whereabouts. The situation escalates when Mari's deputy also resigns. Jun calls Nami to arrange a meeting with her family, and later, she meets Mr. Su, who tells her that Mari had asked him not to fire her and that she had refused his offer. He feels disappointed, and Nami tries to comfort him. We then see Jun at the supermarket, where he runs into Ryo. When she learns that he is getting married, she asks him to grant her one last wish and attend her surgery. She confesses that she lied to him about having tendinitis, but Jun refuses to respond until he gets Nami's opinion. Ryo's thoughts are all over the place, but in the end, at the company, Nami finds Mari's signature on a document from the facilities department where she had been missing for a while. Nami rushes there and finds Mari. When they talk, Mari confesses that she had to face the consequences of not being able to save the magazine and had to cancel the merger. Nami tells her that Jun asked her to marry him, and she agreed. Mari asks if that means Nami is quitting her job, but Nami replies that she hasn't thought about it yet. Mari asks why she left the magazine, and Nami spends the whole night thinking about it. Nami understands that Mari left the magazine because of Mr. Su. During a meeting at the magazine, Ray wants to completely change the magazine system, but the staff members protest. She then meets with Shishtawi, who tells her that he's the one who leaked the article about Mari exploiting the staff. He adds that Mari should have been more careful. Ray then throws a glass of water at him, saying, "Sorry, but it seems that all the editors-in-chief of this magazine are crazy." The staff continues with the meeting, trying to get Mari back, but all their attempts fail. However, they finally succeed in bringing her back. Later, Nami is on her way to work when she meets Jun's mother, who has been following her. Eventually, they sit down to get to know each other. The woman turns out to be very kind and shares that the reason for the broken relationship between Mari and her father was that Mari decided to study fashion in Paris. Her father was against it and told her that he would pass the company to Jun. Mari had never returned home. Jun's mother explains that there are many things Nami will need to know about the family she will become a part of and invites her to dinner. When Nami returns home, she tells Jun about the conversation. She mentions that his mother is kind and has a personality very different from Mari's. The next day, Nami tries to convince Mari to come to dinner, leaving her the restaurant's name, but Mari still doesn't show up. However, Nami shows them the magazine and how great Mari is, and how hard she tried. This makes Mari's father feel guilty. After a while, Mari enters, telling them that she failed and couldn't achieve her dream. Her father stands up, apologizes, and cries. Mari cries as well, and her mother reconciles with them. Afterward, Mari leaves and Nami follows her, begging her to come back to the magazine. Mari tells her that she left her to continue her work there because she knew it was Nami's dream even before Nami herself realized it. Nami thanks her and leaves. The next day, Jun presents Nami with an engagement ring. He tells her that if anything is bothering her, she can tell him. Nami replies that everything is fine and laughs, though it's clear she wants to say something. As she leaves, she meets Ryo, who tells her that when she came from her hometown, she had no dream other than to get married and live a normal life. But now that she's about to marry, she has found a new dream. Ryo surprises Nami by telling her that Jun gave up his dream of photography to take over his family business. This is new information for Nami, and Ryo continues, saying that if Nami also gives up her dream, Jun will be even more upset. Meanwhile, Jun is talking to Inzoka, who tells him that Nami's dream is to become an editor at the magazine. Responds that he already meets Nami on the rooftop of a building, becomes emotional too, but tells her that he always wants to see her smile. In that moment, Nami takes off her engagement ring and hands it to Jun. Tries to hold himself together, telling her to take care of herself. But after she leaves, he breaks down and cries. Nami continues to reflect on their memories together and is devastated, crying uncontrollably. Suddenly, Inzuoka appears in front of her. The next day at work, Nami arrives with swollen eyes and she thinks that everyone is looking at her, including Jun. Ryo comes to her and gives her a tissue, and Nami tells her that Inzuoka gave her a tissue yesterday. We find out that Inzuoka had been comforting her, telling her that since she sacrificed her dream for Jun, she has no choice but to make her own dream come true. At the company, Rei admits to Mr. Su that she failed in managing the magazine and that it was Mari's place. She admits that she was greedy for everything Mari had, including the magazine and Mr. Su's affection. Mr. Su rushes to find Mari to tell her, but she says that she can't return now and must take responsibility for her failure. Mr. Taha will take over the position. The problems keep piling up, and the new magazine photos are leaked on Instagram. They desperately try to convince Mari to return to her position, but she refuses for the millionth time. On the other hand, Mr. Taha holds a party for his new position, and surprisingly, Jun attends. He tells Nami to focus on her work and leaves immediately. Afterward, Inzuoka invites Jun for noodles and tells him that he saw him taking photos and knows how much he loves his profession. He advises Jun not to give up on Nami and to try to understand her better. Nami and Rei go to apologize to the model whose photos were published, but the model tells them there's no need to apologize because the photos became a trending topic and made her even more famous. When they return to the company, Nami suggests that they should use what happened to their advantage and come up with something new. They brainstorm ideas together. That night, Nami asks Inzuoka out on a date, and he happily agrees. The next day, they redo the model's photos in a new, unique style. Once the magazine is ready, they send a copy to Mari, but she returns it, saying that she has nothing to do with them. However, Nami runs after her, telling her that this is the first time she's written something that became so popular, and it contains everything she's learned. She begs Mari to read it, and Mari finally agrees. Afterward, Mari meets Mr. Su in the elevator. He tells her not to overburden herself with responsibility and to share it with others. She sees the magazine and is overjoyed. She remembers the first fashion magazine she ever read and starts crying. She recalls her conversation with her father and wonders if she had abandoned her dream back then. Would she have achieved anything? The next day, she wears the piece from the clothesline and returns to the magazine. She tells them that she is changing, and everything in life changes except for passion. She congratulates them on their efforts and asks for some final adjustments before the final run-through. From that day on, they work at full capacity until Mari finally approves the magazine. The next day is Ryo's surgery day. After she leaves the hospital, She tells June that she was selfish, wanting to take advantage of his kindness until the very last moment. But he too should be selfish and choose his dream, choosing himself. After he leaves, Nami calls him and asks him to love her for just one day, as they will be meeting someone. And they spend the day together, just like the first day they pretended. This is because her friend told her how much June loves photography. Nami tells him that since he gave up his dream, he hasn't smiled, and she loves his face when he smiles. She encourages him not to give up on his dream, and he is convinced. Later, he tells his father that he cannot take over the family business. Just then, Mari enters and says that if he loves June, he should let him achieve his dream. Their father hugs them both and tells them that they are more important than anything else. Mari then returns to Tokyo and resigns from her position. As the magazine is now standing on its own feet, she tells Mr. Sue to rely on her. He asks if she means in the company or at home, and she answers both. She then goes to Nami and tells her that June is leaving Japan for Cambodia to become a professional photographer. Nami runs to catch up with him, but she finds him at the magazine. He tells her that he is running after his dream, and he won't run away, but asks if she will wait for him. She tells him that she will wait for him for the rest of her life. They embrace and kiss. 3 years later, Nami becomes an editor, and Rei takes over as the magazine's editor-in-chief. Nami tells us that she used to be happy with anything because she had no dream, but now she laughs from her heart because she has a dream. She is also nervous because Jun hasn't contacted her for a long time. We learn that he has become a famous photographer in Cambodia, with his photos featured in National Geographic. Nami is wearing an engagement ring and watching a video of June in Tokyo. She goes to look for him at the bench, and he shows up. Finally, they are together in one place, but when they sit on the bench, it's still wet from paint, and it spills on their clothes just like the first time. They laugh together. The lesson from the show is to go after your dream. You might find someone to love along the way, and that's the end of the series. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Check out more recaps you'll absolutely love right here.